politics being what it is, with a lot of people making money off the status quo, the truth about how much of a waste ethanol is for the economy, environment, and health has a hard time making it outside the capital beltway, where people getting hurt the worst by this totally irresponsible policy can see it for what it is. To ethanol's credit, which I'll cover this aspect of it as a fuel in more depth in my ethanol related video, there's a proper way to use ethanol as a fuel that's cheaper, can be produced easier and quicker in higher amounts from the existing infrastructure, and doesn't cause a lot of mileage loss. In fact, it's so easy that, well, that's why they're doing it the way they are. Because once you know how we should be doing it, little companies who don't need big investment capital from Wall Street will spring up all over the country, taking energy profits away from the oil industry and Wall Street bankers. This is just one example of how we can provide better health care for ourselves without feeding the healthcare system more money and lives with which to practice making profits from. In every case I've investigated where we're being exposed to toxins that make us ill, I found that not only are there less toxic ways to do it, it can be done cheaper while yielding higher profits for investors over the long term, while building a more stable society so that when we do retire and cash out our 401k accounts, we have a decent country to spend it in rather than having to flush it all down the same toilet our economy is heading in right now. We can have a cleaner environment, good health, and strong economy. We just have to stop focusing on money being the cure for all our problems and look at the problems themselves. Take, for instance, the healthcare system today. What do you think is going to happen if we begin to clean up our act so we and our children aren't exposed to so many deadly chemicals on a daily basis? That's right, we won't get as sick anymore. Of course, all of you have heard of the housing bubble by now, the one that burst, taking the rest of the economy with it when it did. That happened because the housing market was bloated. It was overvalued. It was invested in for profits, not to give people places to live. What would you call a healthcare industry that has grown to gargantuan proportions because we're poisoning ourselves with so many unnecessary pollutants? I call it another economic bubble ready to burst if we stop abusing ethanol and start adding chemicals to gasoline that actually make fossil fuels burn cleaner. If Americans were made homeless when the housing bubble burst, what will happen to sick people when the medical industry's bubble bursts? Right now, I see a health case debate that has gone on for endless months while the EPA and FDA have actually been moving to get rid of some pollutants that make many of us ill. But I don't see any open discussions about a coming healthcare industry bubble bursting. This is not how business in this country should be run. The American people need all the cards on the table so we can decide how we want to proceed. This is not the kind of country where we're supposed to be told what our leaders want us to know and are not supposed to concern ourselves with what they don't tell us. We're supposed to be a country whose citizens know what's going on and have a voice in what's being done about it. Decisions aren't supposed to be made behind closed doors where we're then told half or untruths about what's going on. If you want these kinds of issues talked about publicly so our leaders have less incentives to work against us while better allowing us to use our wallets to deal with problems coming from Wall Street, all you have to do is let the other candidates in the House race of the 11th District of Virginia know that you want answers, all the answers, the way I give them to you. That will put them in a position to either agree or disagree with my position. If a lively debate can be had over these issues, it will lead to change. The reason these stories have been kept from you or lied about is because if you knew about them, change would follow. That's the way I see it with every problem we face right now. If we knew how to solve them, we wouldn't need big government or big banks to solve them for us. So of course they don't want us to know how easy it would be to make things work right for us because they wouldn't support their privileged lifestyles in a fashion they've become accustomed to. When I was a kid growing up, we didn't rely as much on bankers or elected officials running our lives the way we do now. My father's generation looked to them even less, and so on back through the ages. But we also littered the streets with cigarette butts everywhere we went while filling our lungs with poisons we knew were bad for us. We got rid of cigarette butts, but we replaced the toxic gasoline additive. But that isn't a sign that our way of life doesn't work. It just means that we still have a lot of work left to do perfecting it. I believe that if we can survive where we've been and where we are now, we can survive anything. but think about how great things could be if we could stop working against ourselves. That's the vision I have for this country, an America that can solve problems without causing more to take its place. If we can survive the way we do business now, think about how happy we could be if we simply knew the facts behind the troubles we have and how they could be gone tomorrow with just a slight shift in how we deal with them. You don't have to vote for me to make this happen. It can happen long before November. All you have to do is support my being taken seriously as a candidate, even if you have no intention of voting for me. Although if you do that, these problems will be solved. The country and the world will heal and become stronger as a result of it. So by November, there will be no one left to vote for except me. If it happens that way, I won't care if I'm elected or not because I just want things to work the way they ought to. If they did, I wouldn't be wasting my time trying to get into politics in the first place. I know, it's quite a dilemma. Make sure you stick around and see how it all works out because it's bound to be mighty interesting.